So excellent. So yeah, this is Court Pitcher, and he and I've known each other, gosh, going on, we're probably at almost 15, 20 years at this point, right?
Probably 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, around kind of planning for folks in their financial future, entrepreneurs, kind of everyone all over the board that we've done planning for, both financially and for kind of their estate and entity structure and all that for a lot of years here. So Court's not just an associate of mine; he's a friend as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm gonna let him go through kind of how their process works, because it's pretty awesome and pretty revolutionary, as opposed to running down the street and calling your brother-in-law who knows a guy or a girl who's an attorney who then helps you through this at probably 5 to 10 times the cost, right, Court?
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you, Ryan. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Couldn't agree more. We've been friends for a long time and working together for a long time, and it's just an honor to know you and Dale and the rest of the Garda team. You guys are all amazing people, and I'm sure many of the people on here have been greatly blessed as a result of knowing and working with you guys. So I'm grateful to be here today, to be able to share some more about estate planning, but more specifically legacy planning. So that's what we're going to dive into today. Here we go with that fun legal disclosure that Ryan just talked about.
Yep.
So, but I'm ready for the next slide when you guys are ready. So as Ryan mentioned, my name's Court Pitcher. Just simple way to remember my name is basketball court, baseball pitcher. There you go. It's that easy. So fortunately, people ask me all the time, when your parents named you that, I guess they were hoping that you would like sports. And fortunately, I did love sports, still love sports. So it just kind of fits. But I'm the co-founder of Legacy Lock and co-creator of what we call the legacy planning process. And that's what we're going to really focus on and talk about today. So I always start off by sharing what I call was an unforgettable year for me, 2005. Back in early 2005, I actually had two good friends pass away. Both were separate incidences, about a month apart, but very tragic and very unexpected. The first friend that passed away, one thing that I noticed being close to him and his family, especially after he passed away, he really hadn't been very proactive or very intentional in doing any good planning for him and his family. And so as a result of that, it left his wife trying to navigate through some very difficult financial and legal things. And it was just really, really hard on her. She was actually at the time expecting their fourth child. So they had three kids and number four on the way. And then having to go through all that was just a nightmare for her. And so I remember just kind of looking at her and going through that thinking, oh, I I can't imagine how she must feel. It's just got to be really hard. The other friend, though, I observed the complete opposite with his wife and kids. He had been more proactive and more intentional in planning, and as a result of that, he had kind of carved a path for them that made things a lot better for them to move forward in life. Obviously, it was still really hard for them to deal with him being gone. That's always the hardest part and something none of us like to go through. But again, because he had been more intentional in planning, their ability to move forward was so different than my other friend's family.
Yeah,
So,
the emotions are enough, right, Court? The emotions
oh,
are enough to have to deal with without having to say, well, where's this bank account? What kind of life insurance do we have? Is the property in the name of our trust? Is it, it's hard enough without adding administrative tape, right?
absolutely, absolutely, yes, you're so right, Ryan. So here I was at the time in my early 30s, married, had a couple young children myself. And so this motivated me to take some action for me and my family. And so I went running to a good friend of mine that Ryan also knows well. And I shared with him what had happened with my friends. And I said, you know, we haven't done any planning ourselves. What do we do? Where do we start? And that's where he introduced me and my wife to what he referred to as holistic planning. And we now call it legacy planning. But he started taking us through a process, and I absolutely loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. And so that was kind of where I realized, wow, I have a lot of passion for this, just like Ryan does, just like Dale does, and Jim. I was like, man, I really have a passion for this. And as I thought about it more, I realized I want to help more people avoid what my one friend and his family went through and help position more people to be more like my other friend. And so that's what kind of set me on the path to this. And it's what kind of led us to creating Legacy Lock and the legacy planning process. So shortly after that, I got into the business. And as I started meeting with people, taking them through that same holistic planning process that me and my wife went through, I realized that whenever we came to the topic of estate planning, most people would kind of sit up in their chair and they'd say, you know, we're so glad you're bringing this up. This is something we really need to get done. and and so, you know, I would then refer them to like a local attorney or something. And then when I would meet with them like 6 months or a year later to kind of review things, I would ask them, hey, were you able to get your estate planning done? And nine out of every 10 people would say, you know what? We really wanted to get it done. We were excited to get it done. But when we found out how much it was going to cost, how long it was going to take, how complex it was, we just decided to hold off. And the more that I heard that, the more it bothered me. And I just thought, you know what? Most people aren't being given a great solution for this. Um, yeah, thank you for going to this next slide. This is perfect timing. So I discovered that there were, you know, a number of reasons why people weren't taking action. It wasn't because they didn't want to. They really wanted to get this important planning done. But some people found it to be an intimidating process. Most people were turned off by the attorney fees, right, Ryan?
Yep. Yeah, especially if they're hourly, because there's no end in sight.
Yeah. A lot of times people didn't like the fact that it was so ambiguous. There wasn't just a clear, transparent fee, or it was just so much higher than they were anticipating that they just decided to hold off. Other people found it to be an uncomfortable topic. And also some people found that it just seemed too complicated. And I quickly learned that a lot of times the the attorneys were making it sound or would make it more complex than it needed to be just to justify their ridiculous fees.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I'd add there, Court, just in my own experience and through, you know, all the clients that we've helped over the years is
Mhm.
attorneys tend to lean towards trying to get it perfect, and then like make things overly complex. I'm 2 decades into my estate planning. You do have to revise things sometimes, but
Yeah,
sometimes done is better than perfect because you can go back the next year and say, oh, you know, I kind of want to change how my stepson is in here. It's but is having nothing is having an estate plan. It is called whatever state you live in. It's called the government. There is
yeah.
an estate plan for
Government
you, whether
plan.
you have it or not.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I have that conversation with people all the time. Whether you know it or not, you have an estate plan. It's just, do you want the government to be a part of that plan, or do you want it to be your own customized plan that keeps the government out of it, which we're going to talk more about here in a minute. So I'm glad you brought that up, Ryan. Great points.
Yeah.
Anyways, all these things just led more and more people to procrastinate. And these experiences and discoveries motivated us, me and my partners, to create a better solution, which we call the legacy planning process. So if you go to the next slide here, people ask me all the time, they'll say, Court, what is legacy planning? What is the legacy planning process? What makes it more better or more valuable than just typical estate planning? And my answer is always this: legacy planning is everything estate planning should be, but is not. I'm going to repeat that. Legacy planning is everything estate planning should be, but is not. And what I mean by that is I discovered early on in my career that, as people would go and work with attorneys and get their estate documents done, that's about all they got. There were holes, there were gaps, there were things that were left undone, and very, very important things. And so what we were able to do when we created the legacy planning process is we were able to bring the estate planning world and the financial planning world together to make sure that there were no holes, there were no gaps, that everything that really needed to be done was being done properly. So that's, as I elaborate on our process today, that's essentially what I'm saying is we've created a process that helps make it so you can get everything done in one process, um, and we make it as simple and easy as possible for you. So okay, let's go to
Yeah, and Court, just
yeah,
I kind of know the answer to this question, but I'm sure it's going through some people's minds. As you help them structure all this, obviously there are reasons you would change your estate plan, right? Someone passes away, a child is born. There's some quite obvious ones, a divorce, whatever.
sure.
But in general, how often should people be getting back with either you or their attorney, whomever, to review their estate plan? Because it seems like laws change all the time, people's situations change. Like, how often should people be reviewing kind of what they have going on?
So I tell people it's good to review at least once a year.
Mhm.
And when you review it, that you may not need to make any changes, but it's just good to be proactive and review it and talk about, what's changed with your family. Are some of your kids now in the adult phase of life? Do you still have minor children? Do you want to change your successor trustees? Do you want to change your guardians for minor children? Did you acquire any new assets that need to be properly structured with the trust? So again, I just kind of say, it's best to kind of review once a year.
Excellent.
And when I talk about our process here, I'm going to talk about one of the valuable benefits that we provide in regards to that. So I'm glad you asked that question, Ryan.
Perfect.
Um, so I'm going to go through and talk about the three steps of our process. For the first step, as you can see here on the screen, is we help you create your customized estate documents. And we do that by utilizing our Legacy Lock estate planning software. We developed this software about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, with our attorney partners. And the whole intent was to be able to develop a software that would allow us to serve people in all 50 states. So with our software, the moment that we go into it and select any of the 50 states and hit save, our software is very intuitive. It knows that it needs to then create the legalese and the language specific to the laws of that state. So it makes it really, really nice. So we are working with families all over the country, and it's fun. It's really fun to be able to help families in all these different states. What is included in our document package? If you'll click to the next thing and stay right here for a sec. So we provide a full comprehensive estate document package. And we provide what we primarily focus on is setting up revocable living trusts. Now, many of you may be aware there's different types of trusts out there, and they all kind of serve different purposes. But the reason we created our package with the focus of revocable living trusts is because that's what fits most people. A revocable living trust means that it can be changed, it can be amended, it can even be revoked. But there's just a lot of flexibility and autonomy with a revocable living trust. It gives you more control of what you're doing with your overall plan. When it comes to doing other types of trusts, which can be pertinent to certain situations, we do have a law firm that we work with closely that their niche is to do more advanced estate planning. And so when we run into a situation where that's needed, then we generally pivot to them and bring them into the picture to help with that. They do not represent Legacy Lock. They represent their own firm, but for the most part, Legacy Lock fits 98% of the country. So
Well,
that's why we
and Court, I don't know how you did this, but I did it in phases. So I did all of this, and then
uh,
as my life got more complicated, then I went and started doing some of the irrevocable things that way because it's you got to create a baseline. Like I said, like we were talking about before, if you don't have an estate plan, even a basic one, then you do. It's the government's estate plan. So get
yeah,
something, and
yeah.
then as things get more complicated, oh hey, I might sell my business. Oh hey, there's this coming up. Well then that's when you can evolve, right? Your estate planning can evolve.
You're exactly right. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Ryan. Yeah, what we provide through Legacy Lock is what we call the essential foundational documents that everybody needs, regardless of their state. So we provide those foundational documents, and then as as things evolve and change, or your estate, the value of your estate grows, you just add more to it. And I've done the same thing, Ryan. As time has gone on, I've just added to what I initially started with. So within our revocable living trust, there's different ways that we can customize things for you. So when it comes to distribution or distributing the assets or transferring assets to your beneficiaries, there's different ways we can structure that, and we can help set up when you want those assets to transfer, who you want them to transfer to. We can set up contingent beneficiaries behind your primary beneficiaries. We have lump sum distribution options, income only distribution options. There's a number of ways that we can structure that for you, depending on what your situation is and what your objectives are. We also have spendthrift provisions in our documents, which is very important to have. Whether you're working with us or anyone else, it's very important to have spendthrift provisions. And those are just protective provisions that help, if you've been in a divorce, those spendthrift provisions are helpful and protective in that regard. It's also, they provide protections against creditors and things like that. So spendthrift provisions are very important to have in your documents. If we also provide special needs provisions at no additional cost, by the way. I found years ago when working with attorneys, anytime I referred a client that had like a child with special needs, they would charge an additional $2,000 or $3,000 just to put in special needs provisions and things like that. With us, it's all included. So the reason that we've wanted to have that in place is because if you have a child, whether it's a minor child or an adult child, but if they have special needs and they're receiving government benefits, if they receive an inheritance all at once, that can kick them off their benefits. So with our special needs provisions, it basically stipulates that when you pass away, the special needs child's inheritance should remain in the trust, and only be used as needed so as to not kick them off their benefits. So that's something that's a really nice value that we have with what we offer. Okay, next part here. In addition to the revocable living trust, we provide what's called a certificate of trust, which is basically a summary of the more detailed trust document. The certificate of trust oftentimes gets used when you're dealing with financial institutions. For example, when you go to your bank or credit union and say, hey, we've set up a trust, we need to get our accounts linked to our trust. They will oftentimes ask for a copy of the trust. Well, rather than giving them the more detailed version, you can just give them the certificate of trust, and that will suffice. We also provide the last will and testament. Most of you are probably pretty familiar with, a will, the last will and testament. There's a pour over will. A pour over will is what I refer to it as a safety net or a catch-all. So in a minute here, we're going to talk about the importance of funding your assets into the trust. Funding just means to move or transfer assets into the trust. And so that's a very important thing that has to happen so that when you die, your assets don't go through the government. They don't go through the probate courts. Well, the pour over will is basically a document that indicates that you've set up a trust. And if by chance you forget to put something in the trust, then that pour over will help basically get that asset put back into the trust. So
Yeah, it's basically, hey, I forgot to put this into the trust, but I meant to while I was alive.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
then it automatically moves over there.
Exactly. We also provide a financial power of attorney. This is an individual document. So if you're married, each spouse will have their own financial power of attorney. And this gets used if you become incapacitated. So with that, most people appoint their spouse as their primary agent, and then they'll appoint an alternate agent in case they're both incapacitated. But whoever they appoint as the agent, basically that gives them authority or power to handle finances while you're in that type of situation.
I've also had this, speaking from experience here, Court, I've also had this where a client of mine, his son became incarcerated for a year. And financial power of attorney, he had a wife, kids, all these sorts of things became very important for his spouse. Even though he was not incapacitated, he was not in a capacity to walk into a bank and withdraw money, transfer assets, refinance a mortgage, all these sorts of things. So these are powerful documents while you're still alive, even though we call it estate planning. It's like, well, you may utilize one of these powers of attorney short term and then not need it for a number of years, but it's in place. So if you need it.
Absolutely. Yeah, great point. I mean, in fact, the powers of attorney are only effective while you're alive. Once you pass away, they become null and void. Everything reverts to the trust. But the financial power of attorney is very specific on what powers the agent has and what powers they don't have. So I always reassure clients all the time, it's not like they can just raid your bank accounts, sell your home, liquidate all your other investment accounts and run off to Australia. They can't do that. It's very, very specific on what they can and cannot do. But it is important to have, again, because if you need someone to handle your finances in the event that you're unable to do so, it's very important to have. In addition to that, we provide a healthcare power of attorney, which again is most often used if you're incapacitated and you're unable to make healthcare decisions in your behalf. Then your appointed agent is the one that can, make those decisions for you. Now, to take some of the heavy pressure off of your appointed agent, we provide advanced healthcare directives, also known as a living will. So I'm literally going to quote verbatim what it says in our documents. If you have a terminal condition or you're in an irreversible coma or a um, um, vegetative state that doctors believe to be irreversible or incurable, then your advance directives say, here's what I want to have happen. Okay. A lot of people kind of refer to it as the pull the plug document. But it's more or less your specific directives that state your wishes if you were in that type of condition. So, Ryan, anything else you want to comment on with that?
Just that healthcare power of attorney could come into function just like the financial, where you utilize it while you're alive. That person might be incapacitated for 3 months, but recovers and is out. But the healthcare directive and financial power of attorney may be enforceable during a period of your life, even if it's just a temporary. Um, and then the other thing is just more on the emotional side. Because like you were talking about how some people, these are hard conversations to have and all that. Well, if I, in my advanced directives, I, Ryan, decide I want to do not resuscitate, well, then I've just taken the emotional decision out of my sister's hands or my spouse's hands or whomever to have to make really hard decisions. It was Ryan's decision. It wasn't theirs. So those are really valuable. And especially I, I encourage clients to point that out to people, because when you go ask someone to be the person who's going to execute on your healthcare power of attorney, they might have some angst or anxiety, whatever you want to call it, around that. And you can explain to them, well, look, I've already made a list of basically what's supposed to happen. So the only way you'd have to really make a decision is if something that just no one thought of kind of happened. It's like, I've already said what happens if I'm in a coma for X number of months, or but I've already said what that looks like. I've just seen where people are like, I don't know about having this conversation with my sister if I'm going to make her it's like, well, you can tell them, well, I've kind of made all the decisions already and here they are. It's like I just need someone to be the person. So you're just following orders for the most part.
Absolutely. So continuing on here, these blue bullet points, these are some things that make our program unique and candidly more valuable than other options you may find out there. If you choose to work with us and our team, we have you fill out some forms, send them back to us. When we get them back, then we go in and activate a Legacy Lock account for you. And it emails you a secure username and password so that you can log in and see everything that we're creating for you with your estate plan. It makes it very transparent for you. So people love the fact that they can just simply log in and see everything that we're doing. We also provide an online funding and asset kit. The funding kit the funding provides detailed instructions written by our attorneys on how to properly fund or transfer any given asset that you might have into the trust so that it's protected from the government and the probate courts when you pass away.
And let me just explain how valuable that is. Is someone like me. So if you get something like this from your attorney or from these legacy law people, you can come to someone like me who's your financial advisor and say, hey, here's what they said. And then I can help change beneficiaries on life insurance, change contingent beneficiaries on retirement accounts, move a brokerage account into the name of the trust instead of a personal name. Like, this is where your financial team can help you execute. And then I know the answer to this, Court, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Like, how many people? Because I know in my experience, how many people come in with an estate plan and you ask if they funded their trust, and their title to their house hasn't been moved, or their brokerage accounts, or their life insurance beneficiary. Like it's just a piece of paper if you haven't done some of the execution on things.
So the answer is most people that have set up a trust have not properly funded the trust. And it was because the attorney simply handed him a piece of paper with some instructions and said, go do this. That's one of the things that I mentioned earlier, that where I felt like there are a lot of holes and gaps or things that attorneys weren't doing for people unless they were willing to pay another fee to get the attorney to do it. So most people, even if they have a trust, I have found their trust isn't properly funded yet. So anyways, every client has access to that funding kit in their account. However, when you work with our team, we actually spend time talking to you about your assets, and we send you an email with specific instructions about your actual assets and what you need to do with those. And in that email, we also we copy the Garda team on that, so that, like Ryan just said, if they need to help you make any changes on beneficiaries, with life insurance, investment accounts, anything like that, then they can help you with that as well. The last thing here, that is very unique with our program is we provide unlimited changes, updates, and restatements to your documents. That is a lifetime benefit, and we normally charge $29.95 per year, so it's just $30 a year to be able to get unlimited changes, updates, and restatements. Ryan, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'll let you talk about that at the end. But
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later on. Court may have something special in mind for you guys today who are with us.
but here's the thing. If you go work with a local attorney or law firm and you have them do your estate planning, they're likely going to charge you a higher upfront fee than what we charge. And anytime you want to make changes or updates or restatements to your documents, they'll charge you either an annual retainer or their hourly rate. And that hourly rate can be pretty high.
I believe my last restatement was $1,500.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So,
and all they were doing was changing some language and stuff I already had.
Yeah. So for $30 a year to have that benefit, to be able to make changes and updates with our team anytime you want, anytime you need it, it's a huge value. Huge value. So, all right. I think we've covered everything. I usually don't go into that much detail on this, but for sake of all your clients and your community here today, I thought it would be good to go into a little more detail on this. Let's go to the next slide. So step 2, we've kind of already touched on this, and it's the funding of the trust. This is a super, super important step, and we pride ourselves in taking a proactive role in helping you make sure it gets done properly. I always tell my clients, once your documents are set up, that's kind of like going out and buying an empty safe. So if you buy a safe, you put it in your house somewhere with the intent to put valuable things in there to protect those valuable things. That's kind of how you want to look at your trust. It functions in a similar way, where it's designed to protect those valuable assets from the government, from the courts. And so we actually will help you with your transferring your real estate to the trust. My team will actually help with that. That usually involves doing some deed work and changing your deeds to your properties and things like that. We have a team of paralegals with a third-party company that we work with that will do all that for you. And we've negotiated a really low price for that, but that is something that we help you with. We talk through what to do with your bank accounts, your 401k or your retirement accounts, your life insurance, your businesses, vehicles, all those things. Again, some of those things my team will help with, and some of those things we'll then defer to the Garda team to help you with, because some of the assets that you have, they may already have helped you with. So we don't want to step on their toes. We want to let them help with that. But it's funny. I even have clients that still use that safe metaphor or safe analogy and say, hey, do we have this in our safe yet, Court? How do we get it in our safe? And so it's kind of fun. Everybody kind of reverts back to that. It just sticks in their mind. Okay, the last step here is what we call the asset protection and optimization step. This is where we take legacy planning to a whole other level. And this is where you guys working with the Garda team, some of these things may have already been properly addressed with you. Some things maybe not. I don't know. But this is where it's the job of the Garda team to kind of work with you further and make sure that they look to see if they're, how you're set up and make sure that you're protected against an unexpected lawsuit. What I mean specifically there is we oftentimes like to look at how your home and auto insurances are structured. Most people are not properly covered to protect all of their assets. And there's some simple things that can be tweaked and done to give you more protection without having to necessarily come out of pocket to pay more for that protection.
Yeah, I have an example on that, Court, where
Yeah,
I took my home, auto, and all of my insurance cover kind of over my properties, cars, real estate, all of it.
yeah,
And basically I bought just a very large umbrella policy to go over the top of all of it for $1,200 a year or something. And I went from I restructured it so that my cost went down on my auto and homeowners, but then there was the added cost of the umbrella. So I actually came out the other end with the exact same cost and went from 500,000 to 5.3 million
yeah,
in coverage over the assets. Sometimes it's that simple in
yeah.
protecting yourself.
I love that you shared that with the group here. Like that's oftentimes the best way to solve that is to look at adding an umbrella policy, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, however. Our goal is to make sure that whatever the value of your assets are, total value, that your coverages with the insurance company are equal to or maybe a little bit greater than that. And so we, working together, Legacy Lock and Garda, we actually have an independent insurance brokerage where we can shop it out with over 100 different companies and find the best company with the best coverages at the best rates. So that's something that we collaborate and work on together as well. We want to make sure that you're protected against an unexpected disability. And make sure that paychecks are still coming in, whether you're able to work or not. And that's something that Garda does as well. Unexpected death, that's where we get into conversations about life insurance, how much life insurance is appropriate, what kind of life insurance is ideal for you. Probably most of you on here have already had conversations like this with the Garda team. They are unbelievable in that space. And so, but if there's any of you on here that have not had that conversation with them, I strongly encourage you to do so. But the other thing is cash flow optimization. This is also another thing that the Garda team is very, very good at. Another big thing that comes up oftentimes as we're taking clients through our process is am I still here?
Yes.
Something just happened where okay, I'm still here. Another big thing that comes up is unnecessary or taxation. How can you and your team help us, mitigate taxes? Because the more that we can help you mitigate and keep in your world, the more of that can be applied to your legacy plan. So we have experts on our team that can help with tax mitigation strategies as well. Last year, we set a record with the clients that we've been working with, or we've worked with clients all over the country. But last year, we set a record, and we helped our clients collectively save over $1 billion in taxes last year. Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And then that's money that they can then redirect into other areas in their plans. So it was pretty awesome. We were able to do that. And then the last thing here is just unnecessary market risk. And again, this is something that Ryan can speak to properly because he has the licenses to do so. But that's something that we often discuss in this step as well. Okay, so moving on here, we're almost done. So the value of the legacy planning process. If you were to go out and try to find another firm or another company that does what we do in terms of these three key steps, you will likely pay on the low end $5,000 to $10,000 for this. Would you agree, Ryan?
Yes, because I have.
Okay. So, but the nice thing about working through the Garda team and in our partnership with them is with Legacy Lock, you can get it for there we go, 1995. So for $2,000, we will take you through this process, help you get everything done properly, make sure you're connected back with the Garda team in steps 2 and 3, and for them to help you with that. And $2,000 with that unlimited changes and updates for the rest of your life. It's just you can't beat it. You can't find a better deal out there. You might be able to go online and find other companies. Many of our competitors offer what we refer to as a low cost kind of do it yourself type plan, or their internal team might do a plan for you. But the reason that it's low cost is because those companies are not really trying to make a huge profit off of the documents themselves. They're trying to capture your data. And then they turn around and they sell your data to other companies and advertisers, and they make millions and millions of dollars doing that. So, there's people that'll come to me every now and then and say, "Hey, I found a deal online or on social media that's little bit that's less than what you charge." And my response is, well, you got to be careful because they're just out to get your data. The other thing is they're not doing true estate and legacy planning. They're not providing these key steps that we provide. And so that's just something to be aware of. If you run into other options out there, they're coming out of the woodworks everywhere.
Yep.
But you got to be careful on who you choose to do this important planning with, because you could end up on a path that could be detrimental to you. So
Yeah, it's all in the follow through, right? And then
that's right.
and then with Legacy Lock having unlimited restatements and all that, it will help people stay up to date and not I mean, just to tug on people's heartstrings for a minute. Like it's I've had 3 in the last month and a half, and some people had their estate plan together and some did not. All had life insurance, thankfully, but it can take something off someone's plate. So it's like more just think about how you want your family or your whomever your legacy is. For some people, that's a nonprofit rather than if they're not married and whatnot. But how do you want them to deal with it? And they're going to be dealing with many emotions. Administering an estate as someone who's had to do it for several people, I can tell you it's a pain even when the documents are there. But if the documents are there, at least you're walking into a bank with a piece of paper and a death certificate and, hey, I have the authority to act, rather than having to go through the courts and probate and all that. It definitely makes it easier on those you're closest to have something as opposed to nothing, which is what more than half the country has, is nothing. They have the government estate plan.
That's right.
So, and also, one thing to maybe address with everyone, Court, is let's just say I didn't do all my restatements and everything like I have been. what if I have my estate plan set up from 15 years ago and I haven't touched it? How could you help me on that?
Oh, great question. So that's part of, so we are able to do what we refer to as restated and amended trusts. So if you have a trust that you've had for 15 years, and let's say most of your assets, if not all of them, are already funded, but you haven't updated your documents, we can prepare new documents by restating it. And what I mean by that is we use the same name and date as your original trust, and then just update all of your documents according to the way you want things updated now. And so that still requires that 1995 fee, but then you get the unlimited changes and updates
Going forward.
going forward.
Yeah. It's I asked that, Court, just because part of what you talked about when people hesitate about doing this, part of it was intimidation. I think some of the intimidation isn't, hey, I've never done it, but it's like, well, what if I did it? And it's just been like I'd be a great example if I had not kept up, because it's like, well, I have 2 adult kids, 1 minor kid. I'm divorced. I'm like, you better be keeping up with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that can be intimidating if it's been 15 years and you haven't done something. So I just thought it'd be great for you to address that with those folks that, hey, I have something, but it's a piece of junk from way back in the day. What can you do with it? You know?
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to mention with that is if you have an old trust, but it never got funded, then we usually just recommend setting up a new trust and getting rid of the old one, set up a new trust, and then we'll help make sure that everything gets funded. So
just a clean slate for folks who've never funded it.
Yeah.
So perfect. It's something that comes up with clients often. So I'm sure someone was wondering that.
I'm glad. No, that was a great question. Great question. So yeah, that's all I had to share. So if we want to go into Q&A
yeah. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you're looking to ask questions about any of this, that we are going to do Q&A here in a moment. So stick around for that. But if you need to hop off, or if you have questions you need to ask in the future, we've got our website you can get with us, our phone number, and then if you just scan that QR code, it's just going to take you to the same spot where you can link up with us, and someone on our team will reach out to you. And so you can ask questions that maybe you don't want to ask in front of a whole bunch more people today, even though it'll be anonymous. We're not going to bring up names, but yeah, that's how you can get in contact with us. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And then we can hop on to the Q&A part of our presentation.